Wow. Former Mariner Justin Turner just took a huge shot on Mariners ownership. Now, how do I feel about this? You will find out after a word from our spot. I'm just kidding. Let's just go straight to the point. And plus, I already have that promo code in this video anyway, so just go follow that. I don't want to go too much into it, but former Mariner Justin Turner just recently took a shot at Mariners ownership and John Stanton for their incompetence throughout the offseason. And this article that is talking about it, it was a great article, by the way. You should definitely give it a read. I will provide the link. It was on USA Today by Bob Nightingale. It is titled, Mariners have unicorn pitching staff, but it's absurd Mariners won't spend on offense, which is absolutely true. And at the start of the article, they were talking about how the Mariners have like a fantastic pitching staff, but unfortunately, they just need offense. It pointed out that the Mariners didn't even go for the likes of Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, and Alex Bregman, which I was begging the Mariners to at least go for two of them. And the Mariners didn't, of course, make a single offer, but instead, they just signed Donovan Solano and re-signed Jorge Polanco to extremely cheap contracts. That was literally it. And right after that kind of beginning parts of the article, then Justin Turner, he told USA Sports Today, it seemed that he said it during spring training, he said, in quote, the fact that they missed the playoffs by one game and didn't go out and add an impact bat or two when you have the best pitching staff in baseball just seems absurd to me. That's something you don't really hear that often from former Mariners. Now, it makes me remember when Cal Raleigh took a shot at Mariners ownership, but all he really said was they just got to spend more money. And Jeff Nelson, when he took a shot at Mariners ownership back in 2003 after the trade deadline, when the Mariners failed to make any kind of a trade, which eventually led him to being traded to the New York Yankees. Like, Turner, now it really then says that Turner, who spent the last 2 months of the season with the Mariners after being traded from Toronto, badly wanted to return. He fell in love with the city, adored the people, dug the Pacific Northwest vibe, and thoroughly enjoyed playing for Mariners manager Dan Wilson. And I did notice that huge shift of change of culture when Dan Wilson and Edgar Martinez took over as the coaches, as Dan Wilson as the Mariners manager and Edgar Martinez as the Mariners hitting coach. And now it's Kevin Seitzer, which might make it even better. He said that he waited all winter for the Mariners to make a respectable offer, but instead he settled for a 1-year, $6 million contract with the Chicago Cubs at the start of spring training. So to think that the Mariners had all of spring training, all of the offseason to get Justin Turner, which I did think that the Mariners should have done that because, sure, he's in his 40s. He may not be the same player, but he does add value to the clubhouse, the leadership, and someone that actually wanted to be there. Then it goes, he says more, honestly, as much as I wanted to be back there, Turner said, if I was the only piece they brought back in, I would be saying the same thing. What the hell are we doing? Are you even trying? There's not going to be a better time to go for it. So I don't know what they're doing. I'm very confused. It's a head scratcher to me. Well, to answer your question about that, Justin Turner, or whatever you're trying to say, John Stanton doesn't care. He doesn't care about winning, just like the last ownership didn't. He's constantly just shedding payroll to pieces, just like when the Mariners traded away Eugenio Suarez. They didn't give any kind of a contract offer or even the qualifying offer for Teoscar Hernandez. Then they traded away Jared Kelenic as a way of getting rid of Marco Gonzalez and Evan White, which I do think the Mariners did give up on Jared Kelenic way too early. Sure, he sucks in Atlanta, but still, I think he could have worked out in Seattle. And Justin Turner, this is not even new. Mariners have been doing this for years, especially back in the 90s when they refused to add payroll to help the core of 1995. And here's a history lesson for you. After that 95 run that the Mariners keep using as a marketing tactic to this day, they traded away Tino Martinez. They traded away Jeff Nelson. They got rid of Bill Risley. They got rid of Andy Bennis. They got rid of Tim Belcher. They got rid of Vince Coleman. All of those key components. And Mike Blowers. And then they just kept shedding payroll year after year. They said that they wanted to re-up Ken Griffey Jr., Alex Rodriguez, and Randy Johnson. But that all never happened. So yeah, Justin Turner, this is all these problems that you're seeing with the Mariners. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to history. And then it goes even further. I told them several times this offseason, you have a unicorn of a pitching staff, which is true. This might be the best 5 starting pitchers in the history of the game. I mean, find me a better 5-man. There's obviously been teams that have had elite 3 guys, right? They're referring to possibly Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, maybe 4 guys. Baltimore Orioles 20-game winner Jim Palmer, Dave McNally, Bob Kohler, and Pat Dobson in 1979. But 5 guys, we're talking about 5 guys on the Mariners. That's what he is implying. And this starting 5 is the most unbelievable starting rotation that we have ever seen. George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, Luis Castillo. And yet the Mariners are completely wasting every single bit of it. There's never going to be a better time in history for that franchise to add a couple of bats to make a run this year, and they've missed it. I thought Alonso was a slam dunk. How can you not go after him? Are you kidding me? Which is true. Like, the Mariners are severely running out of time. I said they were running out of time after 2022 when the window was even more wide open and the Mariners didn't really make any moves for that. And now we got Logan Gilbert in arbitration years. George Kirby has entered it. You got Bryce Miller and Brian Wu that are in their pre-arbitration, but they're going to be there soon, and they're not going to get any cheaper. And now you also have Luis Castillo, who has an albatross of a contract at this point, which, by the way, they should have done that trade to get Masataka Yoshida and Tristan Casas if they really wanted to go cheap on the payroll. But good ownership would have not only kept the starting 5 intact, but they also would have added the bats of Alex Bregman, Pete Alonso, and maybe Juan Soto. But of course, they are not going to do that because John Stanton, he's all about the profit. That's all he freaking cares about. That's it. That's it. And there's nothing wrong with making money in business. There really isn't. That's just part of the game of baseball and ownership of sports. But at least when you have this kind of a team, you got to take some kind of risk, make some of those short-term investments for long-term gains, so that you could use, like, let's just say a 2025 Mariners World Series run. You could use that as a marketing tactic for the next 10 years. So you're going to make money down the road anyway. Why not just spend that little bit of money right now? And sure, I said Juan Soto, but wasn't even asking for him. We were just asking for like the Pete Alonsos or like Alex Bregman. Those would have been type of guys that would have filled the needs immediately because Luke Raley can only do so much. We don't know if he's actually going to be a breakout star. Then we got third base, where huge question marks. We've got Jorge Polanco and maybe Donovan Solano, which that's a huge defensive hole. And now we're settled that Ben Williamson, one of the prospects, could get a call-up, but then they're saying that he's maybe a Josh Rojas at best. And the Mariners are still relying on young talent, which this is not the time right now. The time right now is to go for a World Series. And if it doesn't work and people want to leave, fine, we'll rebuild again. But right now, with this window, this should not be just an 85-win team. This should be a World Series contending team, but they're not doing it because ownership just doesn't care. It just doesn't. Now, let me go a little bit more into the article. Mariners shortstop J.P. Crawford said, "That's not our job. I know the fans are mad at certain people, but they're taking out on players, so I really don't get that." Well, first of all, that's a little bit out of context. They're not taking it out on the players anyway. They are taking it out on ownership. So have a little context on that, JP. And then Logan Gilbert, I guess he said, "I wouldn't say that we're frustrated, but we're just kind of waiting to see what happened." You kept hearing rumors and whether we'd sign somebody. Really, I think we're more curious than anything. It's hard because it's not our money, Miller said. Bryce Miller. We could say, go get everybody. Obviously, there were a lot of guys who were free agents this year who were impact guys, so none of them would turn down an impact guy for an offense. But at the end of the day, the guys who are in the locker room, that's who we're going with, and that's who we're riding with. We believe in who we have. Well, basically, those are just guys that are just protecting their reputations in front of the ownership, really, or just protecting themselves, protecting their butts, really. And then Turner goes, there was a definite culture change. I really don't know how to describe it. Just a vibe, a relaxed intensity. You could definitely see a difference in the room. Definitely that's when Dan Wilson definitely took over, and that was something that was beneficial to the team. And then I guess it goes even further that he was saying that Jerry Dipoto should not be the one to blame. It's really the ownership. Now, I do disagree with you on that. I think it's just more on the fact that Jerry Dipoto just doesn't make good moves. Sure, he is hamstring, but then we also have GMs out there that have made moves with lesser payroll, like Billy Beane of the Oakland A's, or now the homeless A's. It was Oakland back then. And Tampa Bay Rays find a way to make it interesting themselves. So, been saying it for years. It's funny that the Mariners, whenever they're a contending team, they are so passionate on just cutting payroll to pieces. But then, when the Mariners sucked, like Bill Bavasi during those years and Jack Sorensic, they had no problem just blowing up payroll as much as they wanted. Just like when Mariners had no problems with the Mariners had no problems with Bill Bavasi getting Carlos Silva, Jeff Weaver, Scott Spezio, Rich Aurelia. They had no problems with that, but they have problems just adding that one or two bats, impact bats, just to make any kind of a run for a World Series. And as of now, at least Jerry Dipoto admitted it. They are just in the middle of the mix, which they really shouldn't be. We've got the Houston Astros who have some uncertainty because their outfield does not look good and the team's not getting any younger. Then you got the homeless A's. They could be a sleeper, but we don't know. The Angels are the joke of the league so far, thanks to Artie Moreno. And you got the Texas Rangers where their success is contingent on health. But even if all those teams do well, the Mariners still should be in well contention to win 100 games anyway. But they are refusing to add to the payroll, which is really frustrating because we don't know if any of the prospects the Mariners have, despite the fact that they're good. They got Lazaro Montez, Harry Ford, Cole Young, Colt Emerson, Ben Williamson. But the problem is none of them seem to be Major League ready yet, except maybe Cole Young and Ben Williamson. But even if they make it to the league, you still don't know if it's actually going to work out because they are still young players that still could be raw for Major League Baseball. So why not buy that time and get one of those big bats, what they should have done, but they waited too long. They procrastinated. Or use any of those prospects that you don't really need anymore and get it for big impact bats. Sure, if you bet the farm and they turn to be great players, but at least if the Mariners get a World Series out of it, then it's all worth it. And then down the road, you can make up the farm system with the connections that you already have. You've got Jerry Dipoto and Justin that are at least good at drafting. I can at least give them that. Or what about the fact that they have high level of connections in the Dominican Republic? They do get good Mariners prospects anyway. That's where Julio came from. What about Lazaro Montez? Falnine Celestine. And the problem with those two right now, they're still years away. Maybe a year at best. So by the time those guys are ready, Mariners may not even have Cal Raleigh, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert. They may not even be on the team anymore because you're not going to be willing to give them the contract extension. That's all I got to say. I thought I'd just put out a quick rant because it's just frustrating to see the Mariners completely wasting years and years of contention once again. Maybe not years and years, but at least the last few years of contention. It just mirrors the fact how they wasted their 1995 core and their 2001 core due to cheap ownership, and it seems to be happening again. After all, history repeats itself. But once again, that's it. Thank you for listening to my 15 minutes of rant. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification, and let me know in the comments how you really feel about the Mariners right now. And also, the article will be included. It was a great article. Will be included in the description, so I'm not stealing people's work. Thank you, and painfully saying, go Mariners.